financial issues, personality issues, sexual relationship, and so on. Today, we are going to look at the family. We are going to look at marriage as well. And then we would discuss what makes these very important to the would-be couples or to the youth. So, studies have shown that the family and marriage are two very important institutions in the life of everyone, and especially in the life of the youth who would want to go into marriage. A small percentage of the youth or people who are ready to marry are being found to actually take a course in marriage counseling. We find the majority of them probably spending an hour or two with the counselor, an hour or two with a counselor or with a pastor of the church. But a lot of us don't know that there's so much that needs to be invested in marriage and family life, because it's a lifetime thing. It's not something that you go in and immediately come out. But a lot of us, you don't know what we have to invest in. So as counselors of the church, there's a lot we need to do in terms of providing information for our would-be couples. So marriage and family are very significant, like I said, and they help the youth to know and to learn to be very realistic in these relationships. So for a start, I would want to say that marriage or family and marriage life are what we say microcosms of life. They can bring great joy and also bring excruciating pain to us. And in very difficult times, you can find marriage and family as valuable resources during difficult times. Parents influencing their children, both directly and indirectly, and children also influencing the attitudes of their parents. So, although most people in recent times are speaking to the fact that marriage and family actually going to go into extinction, they may not be functioning as they used to, and so on, other researchers are also seeing family and marriage as the most resilient institutions from creation. So many things have happened to the family and the institution of marriage because, since time immemorial, but they're still standing tall because they're providing emotional, physical, and communal support to its members. So we know that it's because of the family that most of us are here this evening. A lot of us are living with our wives, our children, our grandparents, our nieces, our nephews. Why? Why are we doing that? We are doing that because of the things that the family provide for us in terms of support, emotionally, physically, financially, and so on. So tonight we are going to learn a bit more about the family and then a bit more about marriage and what's the problems that come out of marriage. You need to know all these things to be able to inform your participants or your church members as to what they are going to get themselves into. So the first question I'll ask you this evening, and if you have any questions, kindly put them in the chat. The first question I'll ask you this evening is, what is family? What is family? Anybody can help with what you think family is. What is family? Meaning different things to different people. So what is family, please? Yes, Prince.
Yeah, please. I'll come in. So I think family is the man and the woman provides a unit where they bring up children to bring them up in a godly way, so that family become a stable unit in the society, and then in a church and in the country. So that is my understanding. So they come together, where they raise up children to provide that stable foundation for them. And if the man is playing their role very well, and the woman also plays their role, and the children also plays their role very well, then that family becomes very stable, and the children grow up in that family to become useful citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prince. So family, like you said, units of two or more persons united by marriage, blood, adoption, consensual units, consulting a single household, interacting and communicating. So coming together, having, children, like you said, either through, your own natural means as parents or as a couple, or adoption, and so on, and being together, interacting and communicating. It could also be members who are not in a common household, but still see themselves as a common unit. So some of you are in the United States, some of your people are in Ghana, some of your people are in other areas, but you still see yourselves as what? A family. You still see yourselves as a family. So some of us who grew up in very strong families, you should feel very proud of that family, right? Where you had the basic care of your parents, you had education, you had all the support. You should feel very proud today that we are talking about the family and what it does. And there are also people who grew up in troubled families, families where there was no care or care was very limited. And no education, no employment, food is limited or no food. But interestingly, there are some who grew up in very troubled families, but are able to come out of that family and overcome the troubles that they went through. So as a person, as an individual, for us to know who you are, for me to know who you are, for a young couple to know who they are, they can be unlocked by looking at their family. By looking at their family. That's how it is. So once you know the family, you can tell that this person is coming from that family. So many of us left home defiantly vowing, I'll never do it like my parents. Unfortunately, we are what we learn, and eventually, somehow, our parents manage to take up residence inside us. Only later as adults do we discover that we have never truly left home. In fact, in many ways, we are just like our parents who played the same game, different name, yet all products of a codependent heritage lost in the shuffle. This is an interesting code. This is an interesting code, right? Who understands this? This code? Yes, who can tell me? What do you understand by this code? Just 1 minute.
I'll just say that we
Please,
might think.
you?
My name is Fred Frimpong.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, we might think that or we have the tendency to think that we are not like our parents, but we internalize all the behaviors of our parents and we carry them along with us as we grow up. And then later on, we find that we have not changed, but we are behaving just like our parents. And so sometimes we get lost on our own direction and what we need to do for ourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So the issue is when you meet somebody and the person puts up a particular behavior, you are able to tell that this person, is coming from this home. Sometimes, much as you try that I don't want to be a part of this family, it's a dysfunctional one, I don't want to be part of it. But whatever it is, there are genes involved. There are social environments involved. And so you get to, as it were, find your parents or your family members living inside of you. So we say that the family is an organism. The family is like the human being. It has attitudes, it has values, and actions of its members interact with those of all other members. So whether it's a healthy behavior or an unhealthy behavior, whatever it is, because they are attitudes, because they are values, because they are actions, you see it as playing an important role in your life. And we understand the family as a system. The role we play in it, we unlock emotions and behaviors that would otherwise seem impossible to explain. So the family is a system. We are all members of that system. Every member of the family should realize that a responsibility rests on him or her individually to do their part in adding the comfort we need, the order we need in the family, and the regularity of the family, encouraging one another and not working against each other. So we are part of a system, all of us. And a would-be couple should know this. The youth should know this, that they are not working in this world as individuals, but they are part of a bigger system. That whatever they are doing, they need to take responsibility because it affects everyone in the family. This afternoon, I was speaking to somebody. The person told me that he lost a nephew. And he had actually told me about that nephew before, that the nephew had taken to drinking. And they had advised him over and over again, he wasn't listening. And today, he's dead. You see, it's pathetic, but if you come to think of it, this gentleman thought, when they were advising him that alcohol wasn't good for him, he thought it was his life. But now, it is the uncle who is going to pay for his bills in the mortuary, is going to buy his coffin, is going to do all the things. It's not his father, it's the uncle. You see, so we need to be part of the system and take responsibility as a system where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and where each individual affects and is affected by every other individual. So it's important that we consider all this as we grow, as we move through our lessons with our youth, and there are specific tasks that the family takes us through, providing resources for us, procreation, looking after children, promoting maturation, empathetic connection. If this man doesn't have empathy, he wouldn't even mind, because he had told the gentleman over and over again. They had taken him for counseling and so on, and he still wouldn't budge. But now, look at what is happening. So the difficulties experienced by families have actually attracted the attention of counselors and psychologists over the period. And we have gotten to know that knowing the importance of the family and ensuring that we live by some of the tenets of this family would help us to have a good life, and would actually put marriage or premarital counseling and everything that we are doing now onto a very good start if we understand the issues about the family. I'm sorry. Okay. So in 2003, two authors, Fennell and Wingold, advocated incorporating the family in premarital counseling, as the family is a system. Everybody affects each other. So if you're a couple, male, female, and then you have plans of marrying, whatever decision you're going to make, know that it's going to affect everybody in your family. So a problem with one family member may either affect or may be affected by other members operating within the same space. You may want to consider things like helping the would-be couple to build rapport as to how to even approach their family, telling them about the relationship they are in, giving relevant information, reflecting content, what is happening in their lives and the feelings they are being confronted with. And then these skills would go a long way to help people as individuals, help them as couples and the entire family. So the family is an important entity that should be considered in premarital counseling. We all know about the types of family, the nuclear family, the single parent family, which has become very common in these times, blended family, dual career family, child-free family, and special needs families. These are all families that, all of us actually represent. Some of us may be coming from just a nuclear family, some blended, some special needs, and so on. In 1988, a certain scholar called Evelyn Duval developed a theory of family development. What did she say? That families go through a certain pattern of development comprising 8 stages. That every stage that we go through poses a threat to us. And then it revolves around the traditional nuclear and intact families. And so for a family to move from one stage to the next, after all members successfully master the task within a particular stage. So all of us go through stage 1, married couple without children. I don't know whether all of us are married or all of us counselors here are married, but you know that once you marry, you are yet to have children as Christian people or couples. And so you're trying to get to know each other, get to understand your personalities, your behaviors. And then within a year or two, a child comes in and you try to prepare to adjust to the situation. And sometimes at this stage, if you don't take care, you will divorce because a new person has been added to the family. And now you don't know what to do. The woman or the woman is giving all her attention to the child and the man is complaining. So now who is taking care of the baby? Are we all going to work or one will stay at home or what? This stage also comes to pass. Then stage 3 comes in with preschool children, socializing them, taking them to kindergarten and so on. And then stage 4, providing guidance schooling through elementary school, adjusting to parent-child relationship with adolescents. This is a very critical stage because at this stage, many adolescents do go through lots of changes. And then tending to parents' midlife relationship crisis when it comes to hormonal changes amongst both male and female, trying to adjust to menopausal symptoms and so on. And sometimes resolving midlife issues, weight gain issues, and all that. All these are things that affect the family. And then adjusting to being without children after some time. After some time, all the children will leave. And then you experience what we call empty nest syndrome. Empty nest syndrome, where you start experiencing grief because your children have left the house. And typically it's women who experience the empty nest because they are usually the primary caregivers. They care for children a lot in the house. And then now retirement sets in, and then you realize that you have to be home by yourself again. You have to take care of your sick parents, or people get older, they get sick, and then all these things continue to happen in the family. These are things that happen in almost every family. And so we need to take note of that. What are the characteristics of a healthy family? Healthy communication, freedom of expression, personal autonomy, equal power. If we say equal power, what do we mean? It doesn't mean that you cut the onions and I grind the pepper, or you drive the children to school. Fine, when it's like that, it's all good. But it only means that we are all doing things to ensure the good of the family, appreciating members of the family, even if it's children. They have, gained something in school, they have achieved something. What do? Are you able to appreciate your children, providing support, have a time for family? Do you have that time? So all these things are things you should consider when you are dealing with the youth and would-be couples. What about spousal bonding? Growth, encouraging environment that promotes growth. You can do it, go on. And this is not something you can do, just back off. When you do that, it disrupts the peace and harmony in the family, your spiritual and your religious values, and your time together. It doesn't come out of the blue. Families need to plan and be together and know each other and bond well. So what should children actually learn from their families? Moral values, culture and traditions, how to solve problems, commitment to family first, and not my friends first. Members contributing to the growth of the family, and how to make decisions. So what are the values that you have in the family that your children should be able to pick? What traditions, what culture? So let's say many of us have found ourselves in the diaspora. Are your children learning your tradition? Are they learning your culture? Hello, are we there?
Yes.
Are we there?
Yes,
We are here.
yes, we are here.
Yeah.
Are they learning your
Yes.
culture, traditions?
Yes, yes.
So,
please.
on the 6th March, I saw a video of a friend in the United States who had actually taught his child about some of the traditions of Ghana, especially with the Akan culture, and then explained the kente fabric to them. And actually the child wore the kente cloth to school the whole day, trying to explain that we need to, even though we live in the diaspora, we need to understand where or know where we're coming from and to be able to go back and support our family of origin. You see, this is what we need to do. Otherwise, we'll get lost. If we think we are out there and then, we live there, we are having a good time, we will be lost. So it's very important that children are taught to go through these communication, how to talk to people, and so on. But interestingly, when I began, I told you that some people believe that the family and marriage, no. Something is wrong. It's changing. It will never be the same. There have been many changes to the family over the past 50 years, or even more. Family functioning, women employment, living alone, fewer marriages, postponement of marriage, single parenting. And today, look at the birth rate, declining. On the average, women of childbearing age suspected to give birth to approximately 2 children over the course of their lifetime. In Ghana, it's about 3.5. I mean, we cannot have a half child. They say approximately 4 children or 3. And then in the United States, 1.7. So you see that things are actually changing in the family. If you look at the traditional family structure, you see where the father was working, the mother was staying home, and the children were going to school. In the United States, and even most countries around the globe. But after the setting of industrialization, you see things have changed. Women are working now. Some children are even working outside the home. And very soon, some sociologists are suggesting that because of telecommunications, like I'm doing here, because of these, some of us stay home and work throughout. Myself and my husband will stay home and work. Our children will be schooling online. And we'll go back to that structure. We'll go back to that structure. So you see fathers working, you see mothers and fathers rushing to work, children going to be dumped at school. These are things that are changing in the family, We have fewer children. The empty nest, like you see on your screen, you see the parents waving their child after school. Sometimes you may not even see them again. Retirement, empty shell marriages, where the marriage only exists in its name. But truly, there's no emotional vitality. There's no sense of positive energy in the marriage. And it could be due to economic constraints as we have in today all over the world, or outside pressures. Stay on. You cannot divorce. You cannot separate. You need to stay on. Marriage is forever, you see, and so on. So these are some of the things that are happening in today's family. When you look at women's employment, today there are over 50% of women in the workforce. And the choice in working outside the home is related to marital happiness. Whether you would be happy or not depends a lot on this, because either you leave some things to be done by other people, or you are able to do them and you wouldn't be able to do your work. And sometimes wives who work outside the home find themselves actually doing a second shift, because they would work throughout at their formal jobs, and they would also come home and do all the things they had to do. So there are changes that are going on with women being part of the workforce. A lot of people are living alone now. Single person households. And I know with you, many of you are aware that many people are living alone. Sometimes people like to claim they need their privacy and so on, especially the elderly, getting no one to take care of them in these times where everybody wants to go out there and work. So from America to Angola to Japan, but social connections have been found to be very important to our health and emotional well-being. Sometimes when you go to church, see how happy you get. You meet people you haven't seen in a week or two, you start chatting, you get excited and all that. You see how happy you get. But when you live alone, some people may say that, oh, I prefer to live alone. I like it. But research has shown that living alone leads to poorer quality of life. Sometimes depression and anxiety, they set in. Family violence is another change that is going on. Domestic abuse, a threat to all. It's a whole topic on its own. We will not be able to go through all. But you know that gender-based violence is something that is huge amongst women, men too. Globally, 1 in 3 women at some point in their life would get abused. And 38% of murders of women are committed by a male intimate partner. So these are the changes that are going on in families. In Ghana, we have been able to pass Act 737, 2007, and making domestic abuse a crime. Child abuse has also reached the highest record. Over 1 billion children have experienced physical, sexual, or emotional violence. So its purpose, the main purpose of this abuse that children, that women, that men are going through is for the individual to maintain power and control. And that's what is happening. And these are some of the things you should talk to your would-be couples about, and even the entire youth. What about divorce? Divorce rates are on the increase. Somebody would ask, so in the olden days, were there no divorces? We can say that, but we can tell that it's on the increase. Now, there's what we call the divorce divide, a widening gap between divorce rates of the educated and those who are less educated. So I can take care of myself. Leave me alone. Recently, about 3-4 years ago, I met a lady and I asked, that was during the COVID time. I asked her, oh, I haven't seen your husband in a long time. And she was like, oh, you didn't know? We are divorced though. I said, really? She said, yes, we are divorced. I said, why? So many stories. But in the end, you see, she thought that she's a working woman. She said she can take care of herself and her children. She didn't need a man in her life. But just about 2-3 months ago, this lady decides that she wants to go back to this husband she has taken to the court to divorce. That is what is happening. So why so many of these divorces? Can anybody tell me why? Why? What's happening? Why? Can anyone tell me why so many divorces all over the place? Mm-hmm.
Lack of abortre.
Feminism.
Feminism. And what is feminism?
I think it's the movement where women are increasingly now fighting for equality, even though it's actually roles, but they are fighting for equality, and I think they are doing it the wrong way, and then it's beginning to affect the marriages.
Okay, so who raised their hand? Thank you very much. Who raised their hand? Please go on.
Yes, my name is Sarah.
Sarah, go on, please.
Yeah, like my brother was saying, the woman, we are fighting for equality. The same thing, the men too, we're fighting for equality. In America here, mindful that if he's paying the bill, you, the lady, you have to pay some. But in Ghana, but yes, now they want to divide it equal. So if you want me to pay equal, you want me to come and stay in the kitchen and cook and do everything equal, or half part?
Okay. So we'll see as we go on. So why so many of these divorces? I'll come back to these as we go into marriage. Unrealistic expectations. You can type in your responses. It's also allowed. Marrying the wrong person for the wrong reasons. See?
Yeah, Reverend Amankuna.
Yes.
Some of the causes, one is disrespect.
Disrespect.
Yeah, every man is expecting the woman to respect him. But for one reason or the other, the woman may disrespect the husband. and definitely the marriage will never stand.
Okay,
2,
so
it can also be greed. You know,
okay.
the woman will be seeking a lot. So the man may think that this woman I'm married, I don't have a future. Because if she's scrambling for things initially, what about my old age? She may even send me to my early grave. So that can also cause a divorce.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend. We'll get back to that, but we can move on. And you can send your comment to the chat, please.
All right.
So marrying the wrong person for the wrong reasons. You married the person because the person was providing for you. Anytime he meets you in church, he'll give you something, and then you became fond of him. So, oh, then I'll marry you. And then, you know, it goes on. It's like there's no connection. And then one day it will just drop off. Little or no time or effort to develop a strong marriage. Marriage is a very strong institution. You do not just go into it and then come out. You need to develop, go through it with efforts to be able to develop a very strong marriage. Newlyweds, in a study, 63% had serious problems with finances. 51% had serious doubts about the marriage lasting, and 49% had significant marital problems. 45% were not satisfied with their sexual relationship. These were some of the things that got some newlyweds to divorce. So what do you think is the cause of the high levels of divorce in the Christian community? Now we have come home in the Christian community. What is happening? What is happening? Yes.
Yeah, Mama.
Yes, Mama, this is our
community. If you raise your hand, please talk.
Yeah. I think the same things that you mentioned earlier on are also happening in the Christian community.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah. Yes. And I'll add to it that, you know, even though we will say that we are Christians, we are not actually following the Bible principles of marriage. And so that has, you know, the outside world has influences instead of the Christians influencing the outside world. Thank you.
Good. So it looks like you are in my mind, Reverend Minister. Same modern day pressures, same hardness of our hearts, the depth of love and commitment, and the embrace of lies and false solutions to our marital problems have been around us for a long time. So lies, we are not truthful. We don't want to find the right solutions. We are dead to love. We have hardened our hearts. If you see Matthew 19, 1-12, when we have time, let's read it. And so the non-Christian world and its values may have affected. Yes, some would say corrupted the church more than the church has influenced the world for Christ. So the very things that is happening outside, it's happening in the church. So what are we doing? What are we doing as a church? And divorce has been found to affect children a lot, giving them health-related problems, adjustment problems in school, in society, depression, anxiety, and so on. And even the couples involved. So, with all these changes we have spoken about, we need Christ in the family. We need Christ in the family. Christ should be allowed to be the head of the family, the husband, then the wife comes, and then the children come in. This is biblical. So you see, for me as a psychologist, as somebody who counsels people who want to go into marriage, I always say that for women, I'm not taking the sides of anybody, but we are also Christian people here, Christian counselors, that if you look at what Ephesians say about men and women, you would understand the role of women and you understand the role of men. if every woman knows their role, that I am to submit to my husband. And I always say that all that husbands need from their wives is respect. That's all. They don't need any other thing. They don't need your love because they have been instructed to love us. We can't even love them. So all they need is for us to respect them. And they are also supposed to love us. And then no problem. So whether you are a PhD holder, whether you're a master's holder, a degree holder, respecting your husband, submitting, and your husband also giving you the needed love would make the family a very happy one. A Christ-like family. A Christ-like family. So as we've been talking, we'll go on to marriage. Marriage. You see what's happening on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yes, I do.
Good. This is what we all strive for. A happy marriage. And society actually benefits from it when there's a happy marriage, right? No more squabbles here and there, people shouting on top of their voices in their homes, sometimes throwing things off. When I was growing up as a child, there was a family that was a bit, close, a house that was close to our house. Anytime the couple were fighting, we could hear them in our house. And the things they were throwing across, and it was terrible, you know. Ethel, please, do you have something to tell us?
I think I raised my hand earlier on, but I didn't pick it up.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So what is marriage? What is marriage? A socially and legally binding union between two people who live together and remain faithful to each other. A union between a single man and a single woman. An adult decision. Let's underline that. It's an adult decision and has parental consent. You may come in later to tell me what actually happens in the United States. That is more contextual because you live there. But generally, Feynman 2004 talked about marriage as a cultural phenomenon, a religious mandate. And I believe the Reverend ministers here would agree with Feynman that marriage is a religious mandate, an economic relationship, a preferred unit for reproduction, a way to ensure against poverty and dependence on the state, a way out of the birth family, a realization of a romantic ideal, a natural or divine connection. See, so these are some of the characteristics that Feynman actually brought out in terms of marriage. As a people, we believe in marriage, but we do little to improve marriage relationships. True or false? True or false?
True.
Yeah. We like to see the nice wedding, the nice traditional marriage, but when it's done, it's done. We don't want to do any other thing. But that is where we come in as counselors, that we need to let the would-be couple know that it's not all about planning the wedding. It's not all about the flowers. It's not all about the wedding gown. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that to make marriage successful. So we have, a couple of types of marriages, monogamy, and I guess that's what is practiced in the church, right? Monogamy, right?
Yes.
Yes, and then we don't like polygamy.
No.
The church abhors polygamy, right?
Yes.
But when you go into Islam and other fundamental Mormons, you find that. I know in the United States, polygamy is not accepted or it's not legal.
Mm-hmm.
And then bigamy and serial monogamy. That is those who have succession of marriages over time. Yes, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, yes.
Thank you, Mama. Something struck my mind that I just want to ask so that maybe you will explain. Mama, can God, based on an assignment given to one party, let's say a unit of a marriage, separate the family let's say I'm typically using as a being economical, financial, so that you being abroad, your wife in Ghana, and you say you are married. It's a unit, it's a family. Can God assign you as a honorable lecturer that you lecturing us that because assignment God has given to me, the family as a married, hey, stay one unit, let me stay inside. Can God do that?
I'm not too sure about whether God will do that or not. But the most important thing is for you to be able to live together. I mean, whatever happened that you found yourself over there and your partner finds herself over here, maybe for, several reasons, but in God's own way, and I know some of you are reverend ministers, pastors, and all that, I don't think God has any intention that we should live apart from each other, So the best thing that I would say is we live together to be able to know each other. I guess I'm addressing your question, right?
Mama, yes.
We live together. So I remember I married in the United States. My husband was in the US and I was in Ghana. And then I went to the United States and then we went through our counseling and everything. And then we got married. But during the counseling, the counselor told us one important thing that I will never forget. He said, I've been here. He's white. He said, I've been here. I've seen many marriages. Male, female, the man is in the United States, the woman is in another part of the world. And every time there's problem. So the two of you, it's either you, the husband, you go to Ghana or your wife comes to the United States. Period. That's what I'm looking for. Nothing more, nothing less. And so we took that really at the back of our mind. So every time I go there, he meets us, he tells us. So we made that decision and we have never regretted. Sometimes it may be difficult due to some, paperwork and so on. But like I'm saying, it's very important that you find a way to live together. So why do people marry? Why do people marry? For social legitimacy, that is getting married to legitimize out of wedlock pregnancy, status change, for somebody to be called Mrs. or Mr. That is why they are marrying. People marry out of pity. And you see, pity and love are two emotions that are a bit close. You need to be very careful. In counseling would be couples, you need to let them know, what do you feel for this person? Is it pressure? They're telling you you're getting older, or you have dated for so long so there's nothing else you could do than to marry, or emotional security, economic security, that this person has papers, he's working, so let me, go close to him and then let's get married. Or rebellion or revenge, especially some of the young people, that I'll leave the house. And I know a woman who married out of revenge. I'll leave this house, I'll marry. And then later on, what happened to that marriage? So these are some of the reasons. But some of the right reasons are companionship, love and intimacy, children. This is a very traditional reason people use for getting married. Adult identity. Oh, you're a grown-up now. Commitment, continuity and permanence. Most of us, and especially in the Christian community, strongly believe that marriage promises stability. So unlike living with somebody, just like that without marrying, when you marry, you may get stability. So marriage and sharing parenthood, you're not the only one taking care. Marriage constitutes an important, practically obligatory institution in Ghana and even in the United States. I know that. And I know you tell me more about that. It confers honor and respect on people. So when you are not married, you see the way people, talk to you, the way they come around you and so on. And when you marry, the way everybody is excited to see you, and so on. So there was a study in 2007 asking people, young people who had married, why they married. And some of them actually said, about 49% said that they believed that living together was wrong, cohabitation, and that they should be able to marry and not just live together. Love and commitment, 24%. Marrying because they wanted to have children, and so on and so forth. You can see the graph over there. So these are some of the responses. So you need to find out from your would-be couple, why do you want to marry? Why do you want to marry? Do you have to live together before you marry? What does the scripture say about that? So most people are getting married later in life. Most people are postponing marriage. Are you aware of that? Is anyone aware of this? Is anyone aware
that is
that
true.
many young people are postponing marriage?
Yes.
That is true.
Yes.
Some of the reasons are educational, some are career, some see financial reasons, especially the men. They cannot be the breadwinners anymore. They cannot take that title anymore. Because of expensive weddings, you know, they call them Instagram wedding, where the decoration alone is about 50,000 Ghana cedis, or even when in dollars. I told you I had my marriage in the United States. And for you to get a planner to plan your marriage for you and so on, so expensive. Marriage as a patriarchal institution, that the men are the heads, they are the decision makers, everything is about the man. So why would I want to go in at all? Many rules and expectations in marriage, so I wouldn't go in at all. So the biggest change in attitude has to do with single people's attitudes towards being single. A lot of them think that being single, puts them on a right footing. They feel better. So 55% of adults aging between 18 to 29 think couples are just well off if they stay together. Let's stay together. We can do everything that married people do, but we wouldn't spend that much, compared to 45 who think long-term couples ought to get married eventually. And 69% of all adults say cohabitation is just fine, with or without plans to get married. So you see the attitudes out there. These are the attitudes of our young people. So as Christian counselors, what do we do about this? We know, we have gotten to know. So we should know what to do about these. That is taking them through some of these things we are talking about. Having children may not necessarily be, but it's traditional. Right from scriptures and even our culture, it may not be, biological, but some people may even go to the extent of adopting, So the implications of people postponing marriages are having fewer children. Now, if you marry 35 years to 40 years, you cannot have 3 children. Averagely, you may have 2. Grandparenting at later stages where you are 70, you cannot do much for yourself. How do you grandparent your children's children? And now women wait to marry the fewer eligible mates. So marriage squeeze is out there. Few people are out there to choose from. And then when it comes to stigma associated with giving birth out of wedlock, it has declined drastically. So people are like, oh, let me meet a man. We sleep together, we have a child, I have a job. He gets us a house, a car, and I take care. That's all. That's what is happening today. That's what is happening today. So the characteristics of a healthy marriage are that intimacy and sexual unity. For a marriage to be healthy, there should be intimacy, and I'll take you through intimacy soon. Couples should be able to cooperate economically, and like you were saying, reproduction may give birth or adopt. 50 years ago, this was the central reason, like I was telling you. But today, the purpose is diverse. People may not necessarily marry because they want to have children. Some may take children to foster them, some may adopt, or just to live as partners. What are your thoughts on this? Let's share some thoughts before we go on. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this?
Hello, Prof. Fred. This is Fred. I think also communication is also a very important characteristic of marriage, because when we communicate or we listen to each other, we are able to resolve issues or problems that comes out of marriage. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So if we talk about reproduction, for example, we are not saying every couple would be able to have children. That's not what we are saying. But for the human race to go on without reproduction, that's not possible. And marriage
Prof, I have a contribution on.
I'll come back to that. And marriage creates the most secure environment in which to raise children. So people think, oh, I'll just give birth and walk away and have my life and move on. But this is not the best way. And these are what we should tell our young people. The marriage provides the most secure environment to raise children. Just 3 days ago, I had a friend who got divorced about 6 years ago. And she called me 3 days ago that she had a problem on her hand, that her 16-year-old attempted suicide. Why did the child attempt suicide? The child had a problem in school and had been suspended. The mother whom the child lives with got infuriated, spoke to the child in a very harsh tone, left for her program, outside Accra, thinking that the child's father will come. That was a weekend, so that, he'll be with them. And he wasn't coming. The child wrote a suicide note and indicated that he didn't want to come back to the mother if she were to come back to this earth. She missed a couple of things. She drank. She went outside to see if she could stay with a neighbor. She was going back home to pick something and she fell or she collapsed, and that was it. She didn't die, but look at this situation where the two could not resolve their issues. They had to, because they were too busy for each other. Look at what is happening to the children. Yes, please talk to me. Talk to me, please. You said you had an issue.
Oh, I was going to contribute to the reasons why people get married nowadays.
Okay,
And
go on, please.
We all know some of them are financial benefits. We started from Odo de Chensika, and then we transit to Odo Kakra, Sika Kakra. Now we are at the level of Odo Kakra, Sika Bibre. So that has become the modern notion of marriage to most of these young folks. Because
economic security.
When you look at things you see on Instagram and the rest, you can see how lavishly now our young ladies want to live.
Yeah.
And so they fall for things that may not necessarily be there, or only picture props. And then they get themselves into, and that's one of the reasons too that is also fueling the divorce rate.
Yeah,
because
thank you.
You'll be amazed how much money they spend in this, and
Yeah.
very soon it collapse.
Okay. So recently I was watching a short video, and a gentleman wanted to seek the hand of a lady in marriage. And there was a friend who was testifying about the gentleman to the lady. Say, oh, wait there, share, of our beshel pow, of our no found no abusuanina, you know, that is the mindset. You take care of the family, the siblings, even if, I mean, the marriage took place in the US, the siblings back in Ghana, you pay their fees, you take care of everything because you are married to them, But it's important that we know the benefits of marriage so that they would know, or they should know, that it's not just about staying together, but doing the right thing to be in that relationship. Better health, less risky behaviors. Many people in marriages do not embark on, abusing drugs, armed robbery, and so on. No, once they enter into marriage, they try as much as possible that these vices, I may have to put an end to them. But you need to find out and know these. When people marry, they live longer lives because you have a partner to talk to, somebody to depend on, and you can share your economic resources. So how do we choose marriage partners? All societies have ways of choosing their marriage partners. There are restrictions here and there based on religion, based on class, family relationships, and so on. Let's look at some of these prohibited relationships. A man may not marry his father's sister, the wife's mother. I guess this also applies contextually in the United States, right?
Sure.
Yeah. In recent times, even though something like incest, marriage between people of, people who are related by blood, it is not, sexual relationships, as I should put it, but between, two same-sex partners or between children, but not heterosexuals. When you go to many of the European countries, Germany, Austria, and all those places, Sweden, and so on. But as Christians, what do we stand for? Because of some of the genetic abnormalities that may arise. Somebody would say, oh, Abraham and Sarah were distant cousins and so on. Those times, somebody would say these defects were not there. We were not exposed as we are exposed today. So today, we want to avoid some of those or prevent some of those things. So we try as much as possible to choose, make our choices based on the fact that if we are related by blood, it should be very difficult for you to marry each other. So what about parental perspectives? You think parents have any role or influence on marriage? When we marry, according to folk wisdom, we marry a whole family and not an individual. In a study by Stewart and Olson, couples who were engaged were asked the positive and negative comments of their parents on their upcoming marriage. And the findings would intrigue you. Look at this. Negative views of both parents, 88% had low premarital satisfaction. So both parents were not so excited about the marriage. One parent, 75%, had low premarital satisfaction. Both parents had positive views, 58% had positive premarital satisfaction. And divorced parents, actually 67% reported low premarital satisfaction. So this study actually demonstrates that parents are often accurate. Sometimes we think that we have grown, that the world has changed, so we don't need our parents' influence. But that is not so. Our parents are like outsiders. They are more realistic than us. They are not as emotional as the couple in the relationship. So it's important that sometimes we consider their concerns. May not all be true, but it's important that you consider their concerns as well. let's look at some of the theories that affect selecting partners. We have the theory of propinquity. That is, we marry based on the people we know in our church, at our workplace, in school, very likely that when you sit with somebody in church, in class, you may be close, and very likely you may go into a relationship. We have the exchange theory. People try to evaluate their own worth. What do I have to be able to go into this relationship? So I have money, but I'm not beautiful. I'm not handsome. So exchange is not robbery, right? So sometimes you meet a man and you meet a beautiful lady. Gee, so how did this man get this lady? Have we heard those comments before?
Yes, several times.
Most of the time. So we can say that a gentleman with lots of money, but not very handsome, may be able to exchange that with what? A beautiful lady. So people actually choose their mates based on this exchange theory. From complementary theory, we find somebody who complements our needs. A quiet person would select an outgoing person. And we usually find that, right? Sometimes we say
yes,
opposites attract and so on. But the message I'm giving you this evening is that would-be couples really should not be opposites, but rather complementary to each other. They should complement each other. If the man is the life of the party, the male or the female should enjoy she shouldn't be the opposite. She should enjoy the presence of that other partner and what he or she likes, not be the center of attention. If you look at the story of Rebecca and Isaac, I know all of us are Christian counselors, so we know the story of Rebecca and Isaac. And we know the story of Samson and Delilah. Which one would we prefer for our young people?
Isaac and Rebecca.
Isaac and Rebecca. They cooperated with each other. Look at what happened. Before the servant went, and when the servant was at the well, said, should I get you some water? You see? And all that. But look at Samson and Delilah. Everybody was after their own interest. A good approach is for each person to learn to participate and enjoy the likes of the other person. And enjoy the likes of the other person. Then we have the time and place theory. The time, the right time you meet the person. The place you meet the person. It's also key. Sometimes somebody will say, oh, but I'm in abroad and I met somebody in Ghana through the internet, through the phone. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't work. And then the filter theory. We put on a pair of glasses with a specific filter, which says, oh, I need a tall guy. I remember when we were growing up, we'd say, oh, we need a broad chest man, somebody with plenty hairs. I guess you've heard that before. Yeah. Of this
many times.
And so on. This religion, this type of family, and so on. So we put on the biological filter, the spectacles, like somebody who is a bit older than me, 10 years older, somebody in this family and not from that family. I'm looking for somebody who is taller than me, who is shorter. Sometimes I hear men like shorter ladies so that they can continue to push them down. And sometimes whether the person is able or disabled, all these are part of some of the factors or filters we use in selecting our partners. Social class is very important. What does Cinderella have in common with the prince? Have you considered that? A lot of us marry in our own classes. We don't want to marry outside our class. How well would a doctor and a waitress relate to each other? Think about these, and then we would respond to them as we go on. Religion. Most people marry within their own religion, and I guess that is the practice of the Presbyterian Church, as much as possible, right? You marry a Christian and somebody who is also religious, the degree of religiosity. So if you look at 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says what? Don't be what? Don't be yoked with the
Equally yoked.
Equal yoke with unbelievers.
Equally yoked. And then education and intelligence. Most people would want to marry down, especially the men. He's a doctor. Let me marry a nurse. And it's a, sometimes it happens like that. Few times you would find a person marrying another of the same status in terms of education, in terms of intelligence. The more education the couple has, the better the chances of a successful marriage. So would you marry somebody, or would the youth want to marry somebody who is ahead, who is below? What are the reasons for these? Psychologically, we put filters. We're looking at compatibility. We're looking at personality. We're looking at our interests. Our interest, is this person achievement-oriented? Does he want to do something for himself? Would she do something for herself, or she's just going to depend on me? Is the person a detailed person? Is the person meticulous, or the person is picky? I don't want this, I don't want that. There are some premarital fantasies, and I need you to take note of them. Fantasies and marriage realities. Look, let's look at some of them. She married him because he was such an assertive male. She divorced him because he was such a domineering husband. He married her because she was so gentle. He divorced her because she was so weak and helpless. She married him because he could provide income. She divorced him because all he did was work, work, work. He married her because she was so attractive all the time. He divorced her because she spent too much time in front of the mirror. She married him because he was so romantic and sociable. She divorced him because he was fun-loving playboy. These are some of the fantasies among premarital couples. You see, and when they get into the marriage, the realities set in. The realities set in. So what do we do? What are the possible questions you could ask? Does this person make you feel, or does this person make you a better person? You can ask the Woodbrook couple this question. Would you rather be with this person than with anyone else in the world? Seek answers to these. And could you spend the rest of your life with him or her? Could you do that? These are few possible questions you could ask. Keep them at your fingertips and get the responses, and you see what they are thinking. Marriage is a very important institution in God's eyes, and I know all of us are aware of that. It's honorable, it's permanent. God takes marriage seriously. But when I was researching, I realized that marriage is mentioned about 47 times in the Bible. 47 times. 34 in the Old Testament and 13 in the New Testament. In the marriage companionship, there is neither inferiority nor superiority. The woman does not walk ahead of the man, neither does the man walk ahead of the woman. They walk side by side as a son and daughter of God on an eternal journey. On an eternal journey. So we should work on intimacy. It's important. When two people have detailed knowledge about each other. So this is, born out of a theory called the psychosocial development by Erik Erikson in psychology, that there are various stages of our psychosocial development, and intimacy and isolation is one of them. So physical intimacy, characterized by romantic or passionate attachment or sexual activity, but it's not only about sex. It's not only about sex, but it should be part of the overall human experience, getting to know one another and appreciating each other. A sense of trust, caring for each other, acceptance, willingness to be there for each other. If this fails at this age, where the youth has to get into relationships, then they go into isolation, where they will be telling everybody that they are not liked by people, nobody likes me, nobody loves me. They go into isolation, which comes along with anxiety and depression. So you could have various forms of intimacy: emotional, physical, intellectual, recreational, financial, and so on. So how do we grow then in intimacy? We need to practice self-disclosure. When you are counseling, you teach your people to practice self-disclosure in their relationships, but they should be safe in disclosing what to who, whether the person would not use what they are disclosing against them. That should be taken note of. They should be honest, caring for each other, having emotional conversations, accepting each other. And early on, somebody said communication, effective communication, would help you to grow in intimacy, But there are some red flags that you should also consider. Frequent arguments, which usually would escalate out of control, jealousy, feelings of indifference between the couple, emotional detachment, not talking to each other about your problems or feelings. So what is happening to the couple? When you meet them, look out for these red flags. Disagreement on their goals and values. I'm going this way, the other says, I'm going that way. No trust for each other. One of them considering cheating. Inequality. It's like, I am the man. I make all the decisions. Even before marriage. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. These are red flags that you should take note of. Good. Are we okay? Are we following me, please?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Good.
Yes, we are.
Very enjoyable.
Yes, please.
Reverend Awuku, please, because of the hitches, if we could go some few minutes beyond the time, would it be okay, please?
All right, Doc.
Would it be okay?
Yes, please. Let's go ahead.
All right. Okay. So we then we can go. So let's look at this case study. I want you to all listen carefully and we analyze. Becky and Joe had been dating for 4.5 years. They were both in their senior year of college when they got married. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple. He was a big football star, but had suffered enough injuries that he knew he wanted another career. She had been a cheerleader all through high school. They had both been obsessed with taking care of their bodies. Perhaps that is what brought them together. They both spent so much time in the gym. Their marriage had been relatively trouble-free for 3 years, and everyone marveled at how well they had taken care of themselves. They both looked as good, if not better, than in their college days. However, a problem surfaced. Which problem is that? Which problem is that?
A babysitting.
Yes. Joe wants a child. What would happen now? What would happen now? So let's see. How can this problem be resolved? My able counselors. If you listen to the story very well, how can this problem be resolved? Yes.
Through effective communication.
Effective communication
when there is this disagreement or one having or wanting the child and maybe the woman not ready.
So when were they supposed to have this effective communication? When were they supposed to have?
Before marriage.
During
the
initial counseling stage.
Good.
Are they willing
prior to the marriage?
or do they want children?
Would it have helped if Joe had known this about Becky before they were married? Would it have helped?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
How could this problem have been identified? How could Joe know that? I mean, Becky didn't want to have children. How could he know that?
Yeah, so it is during counseling that the counselor will talk to them about children, having children or not, what are their plans, their future plans, their family type, what do they want to do as a family, so that all these things will come up.
Okay. So, what could have been done before the marriage about the problem? And if Becky didn't want to have children, what could have been done?
Then Joe would decide whether to marry or not.
Good.
You should have been honest with him.
Disclosure of facts.
So while Joe probably assumed that Becky wanted children and was willing, because she was looking at adoption. So probably, well, she would come around and was willing to give birth to them. Only half of his assumption was true, because he thought, I mean, Becky had mentioned adoption and that would be fine. So never assume that you know how your partner feels about ideas and important issues. There are differences of opinion that could cause a great deal of stress later in the marriage. So it's important. Sometimes we may even discuss that, oh, the man would say, I want 3. The lady would say, I want 2. Whatever. But even in the marriage, the discussion could go on. And whatever happens in the marriage could determine whether the 3 would come on or not. I remember a married couple, I mean, the male or the man said he wanted to have 3 children, and the woman wanted 2. But when they married, I mean, because of problems with health and all that, the woman could only give birth to 2. The man is still looking forward to the woman giving birth, I mean, getting 3. But he had to understand from the point of view of the woman that because of the health issues, you see, so these things continue even into the marriage, you know, for them to be trashed out. So it doesn't stop when they have their wedding. It continues. And then sexuality comes in, which it's a very important part of all of us. Research has shown that marital satisfaction is significantly associated with sexual satisfaction. Last week, Prof mentioned that we should discuss this. Sexuality. Maturity and wisdom include knowing yourself. Do you know yourself well enough? Do the couple know themselves well enough to know how to talk about sex? What do they know about their systems? Sometimes the man knows that his organ is small or it is not up to, yet he doesn't disclose anything. And he goes on into the marriage. The woman knows that my womb has been taken out. And there's a case like that, you know? So, I mean, it takes maturity and wisdom to do this. Talk about intimacy, talk about sexuality. Research shows that most people learn about sex on the street. Hardly do we talk about sex in the church, right? Hardly do parents talk about sex with their children. Most of the time, parents do not even know what to say. And there is this subtle conspiracy of silence between parents and their children. And this has resulted in many teenage pregnancies. Good parental communication about sex might postpone a child's sexual activity. So as counselors, we should attack the issue of sex and intimacy. Premarital sex is on the increase, even among religious people, and even though the religious group speak against it. A study conducted in Ethiopia, out of 181 respondents, 59.9% had a boy or a girlfriend. About 129 had premarital sexual intercourse. And out of sexually active respondents, 85% had one sex partner, and 44 had two or more sexual partners. What might be the problem? What is going on with premarital sex? We don't talk about it. We think it's a taboo. It shouldn't be discussed. But attitudes towards sexual relations are largely conditioned during childhood and adolescence. It's surprising to observe how many well-adjusted people still think of married sex as dirty, animalistic, or evil. Such a person who has been taught a one-sided negative approach to sex during the formative years may find it impossible to release these carefully constructional inhibitions on the wedding night. So sometimes it goes right into the wedding night because they haven't had any experience with sexuality. They haven't heard anything. The marriage ceremony is simply insufficient to reorient one's attitude from the thou shalt not to thou shalt, right? So it's important that we discuss sex. We need to have a positive mental set. Sex begins in the mind, and I hope you all know that.
Yeah.
About 80-20. 80% of it starts in the mind. There's much you can do to prepare yourself mentally. And when people have anxieties, that what am I going to face? What am I going to see? That is when you come in as a counselor to explain what it entails. So encourage them to seek counseling about anxieties and fears on sex. Now you would think that, oh, many young people have experimented. Well, that is good. That is what the literature says. But there are young people too who are still experiencing anxiety about these. And even those who have gone into the marriage already. Encourage people to talk to people who are close to them and also include the Lord in your concerns. Help your would-be couples to talk to Jesus about their concerns. You'll feel his support and guidance if you seek and believe that he cares about the subject too. Because when we don't engage in sexual activity, we cannot reproduce. Some people would say, oh, there's a in vitro, whatever. Okay, all right. So compatibility is key. Views on religion, views on family, financial planning, leisure time, housekeeping. Are we working together in the house, or everything is going to be on one person? When approaching a serious commitment, remember to tell this to the youth. People must think with their heads as well as with their hearts. It's not only about, oh, I feel so good about this lady. I feel so nice. Oh, it feels so good to be with you. That is great. That feeling is great. But what is happening in the mind? What are you thinking about your goals? What are you thinking about your values? What are you thinking about your career? Are you going in the same direction or you are looking elsewhere? So compatibility is key. Good. I'm going to take you through one interesting thing that you would all love to hear. We call something the economics of a successful marriage. I don't know whether you've heard about it before. The economics of a successful marriage. You know, marriage has been seen as a business arrangement. True or false?
It's
True.
true.
Or false?
True in most cases.
People come together, they get a license, they make an agreement, pull their resources together. You're going to give birth, we will not give birth. You're going to go into this venture, we'll do this, we get money, we invest, our future, all of this. So it's an economic arrangement. So we can use some economic theories or strategies to ensure marriages are successful. Cost-benefit analysis. Marriage, many decisions from very tiny ones to life-threatening or altering ones. You need this to help in your decision-making. For example, if you want to consider a low-cost life, high benefits, probably you consider with your spouse that you put $30 aside each week for an outing to a new restaurant in town or something. You will check whether the money you're putting aside, that's the cost involved, and strengthening the relationship between the two of you, which one outweighs the other? That is the decision you will make. How many times are you able to meet as a couple, even in the diaspora? How many times are you able to meet and have time together? So cost-benefit analysis is key. Moral hazard. Moral hazard. Moral hazard. Let's look at this. You remember 2007? You remember the economic crisis? You remember the economic crisis?
Yes, please.
Many people thought that, oh, estate organizations or real estate organizations like Fannie, Freddie Mac, and so on, they could not be crushed. But what happened? We know where too big to fail led to big bailouts. So in marriage, operating according to moral hazard principles can lead to taking your spouse for granted. You think, oh, nothing will happen. So you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, and you meet one of your former friends. They start a sweetheart relationship. And then you stay and you start investing in this relationship. If you want to stay out of the divorce court, then there's nothing like a bailout in marriage. So when you go into this, it may be a hazard for you. So think of the possible consequences before you do that. You are not too big to fail. Incentives are used by many businesses to motivate behavior. In marriage too, incentives are key. Thanking your spouse for doing the dishes, taking the dog on a walk, doing something small makes them feel good. You know, kindness and gratitude go a long way towards greasing the wheels of a smoothly running marriage. Incentives. The game theory. Somebody would say, what is the game theory doing in marriage? The game theory is also important in marriage. It's a theory about making decisions in strategic situations. It is not only useful as a concept on the world stage between nations bent on defending their own interests. Sometimes you hear America has no permanent friends. It has what? It has what? Yes, it has what? Permanent what? Interest, right?
Interest or allies.
So according to the game theory, two or more parties interested in their own gain but forced to deal with another can engage either in cooperation. You may want something where they work together to come to a reasonable solution, or non-cooperation where it's basically everyone out for themselves. So it's important that you think ahead about your spouse. Consider how your spouse will react in a certain situation. You don't only have to think about yourself. What was your spouse's past reaction the other time this issue came up? How did she or how did he react? And put yourself in their shoes. That is where you would gain. Sometimes it's not just about everything that you would get, but think about the margin. Think about the margin. Change can be very scary in every relationship, but life is all about change and moving forward. When you think at the margin, you consider your next steps, right? So if you make a little change, like getting your children ready for bed, that is not the work you always do, but that little change, perhaps an hour or two, small compared to the benefits of what? A happier spouse. Your wife comes in very late and then the children are already tucked in bed. Don't you think she'll be happy? And all of you would be happy. So that little change is very key to a successful marriage. So the economic approach might not be the most romantic option, but it does provide an alternative framework for managing your relationship. Keep in mind that your behavior doesn't always have to be rational or even to our own best interest. You need to think about the two of you in that relationship and the children alike. So these are some of the tips you can give your would-be couples on how to economically manage their relationships and their marriages to make it successful. Finally, I'll take you through something very interesting before we discuss something little and then we can go. All the things we have said this evening, we have seen that there are problems when it comes to relationships and marriages. That is what we talk about, dysfunctional marriages. No relationship is perfect. At the same time, it's a red flag when a relationship is mainly filled with pain, like you have more than 20% of the time you are struggling, then you have problems. So there could be toxic relationships, vicious cycles of abuse, and sometimes untimely breakups from these dysfunctional marriages. A dysfunctional relationship is a relationship where patterns of destructive, harmful, or abusive behaviors are repeated over and over again. So often when there are deficits in commitment, communication, low levels of mutual caring behaviors, that is when these come in, and corrosive conflict resolution skills. There are types. I'll give you some of the types of dysfunctional marriages. Those who are scorekeepers. They would always look for something that they will use against you. Huh? And they'll use it to manipulate you. They always have their guards up. They see marriage as a contest between two people. The fantasizers are those who nearly give up on any passionate intimacy with each other. So they often escape into, they'll be reading romantic novels, they'll be watching even pornography to satisfy themselves. The outsourcers, what do? They outsource their relationship. The house help would have to do everything, including laying of beds for the couple. Blamers, they blame each other for all the struggles. The separatists, they never got a full grasp of what marriage is about. They live as two separate individuals. And the deceivers, they don't trust each other at all. They lack trust. And the quitters, they throw in the towel. Every time there's an argument, let's divorce. Let's divorce. Let's divorce. These are the various types of dysfunctional marriages or relationships you could find. But where do these come from? When there are differences in lifestyle. So check this out. This person is somebody who all the time is unwilling to resolve issues. They are unwilling. They always want to hold on to what happened the last time. When something like that comes before you, know that this would lead to a dysfunctional marriage. Egoistic behaviors, stubbornness, even when they had seen the counselor and he had given certain solutions to problems, they wouldn't go by it. You wanted to go. That is why we went to see the counselor. Compatibility issues, money matters, money, spending habits can lead to dysfunctional marriages and relationships. You know that. I remember when I had my honeymoon somewhere in Anaheim, California. We went to the shop, the mall, to buy things. And I started buying things. I mean, buying plenty things. Then my husband didn't say anything. But when I looked into his face wasn't smiley. Then I realized that there's a problem. So, all these things, what are you going to do with them? Then I didn't understand at the time. But I realized that, no, I had to look at things again. It is not only about me, but it is about us. So we need to look at our spending habits again. Lack of adequate communication, poorly managed conflicts presents a risk. And the effects are dire on children, especially depression, anxiety, psychological problems on children, and even the couple when you divorce. Dysfunctional marriages could actually lead to divorce. And relating adults from troubled marriages are badly frightened that their relationships will fail, right? Just like the most important relationships their parents ever lived. So would this also happen to me? But how do we converge? How do we converge then? How do we converge? A great marriage isn't the result of blind luck. It is not about luck. If we want a great marriage, it's the result of two faithful hearts committed to build a life together. Committed to build a life together. And how would they do this? How would they do this? They have to cultivate deep love for each other. It is the core ingredient. So when you go to Ephesians 5:25, Titus 4:2 verse 4, convergence is the aroma of love and affection. Harmonize your goals. Bring individual desires to the table. That is what should be done. Appreciate and respect each other and plan to achieve them. Define ways to resolve conflicts. Don't leave them hanging. And look for each other's interests. That is what you should always seek to do as a counselor. The couples should look for each other's interests. More of me is equal to less of us is equal to less of marriage. Less of me is equal to more of us and more of marriage. Selflessness breeds what? Trust. And trust breeds oneness. Oneness. This is what we should seek to do. Spice up your marital satisfaction. Make yourself desirable. Sometimes after the marriage, you see the women, especially, some of the things they wear, some wig they wear, and then everybody will be looking at them. Spice up the marriage with your looks. With your looks. Work hard Work hard at it, work hard to satisfy each other. Work hard to satisfy each other. You have to invest in yourself so that you continue to be appealing to your husband or your wife. And develop the habit of doing things together. Encourage them to do things together as they marry. Just last Friday, I visited a couple and I saw them washing their 2 cars together. This one pours water, this one is washing with a sponge. It was so lovely. Talk together, pray together, fast together, and refresh your marriage. Create time to be alone. An evening out together wouldn't be a pain at all. A short holiday. Sometimes it's not all about, hey, we don't have money, we don't have money. You can find an inn. I mean, I know in the States, there are inns that are a bit cheaper than the hotels, but they are also very nice. Can spend a night. 2, be with each other and create fun for the marriage. Work on the marriage, and the marriage will work for you. If these are not working, then professional help is important. If a person is still not getting the satisfaction, then you, because you're a lay counselor, you may refer the person to seek professional help from a psychologist, or a licensed counselor. So finally, what are my final thoughts for you this evening? Despite all the changes associated with family and marriage, in many cases, these institutions have provided stability in our lives. Parenthood is important, very important for many couples. And most family members have a commitment to each other, although they might all not always get along. Sometimes you know it yourselves, even in your own families, but you know that it's important to keep the family together. Most families have a value system that encompasses spiritual beliefs, that provides the foundation for their attitudes. And this should be key in every marriage relationship. Family and marriage provides significant continuity in our society. And we should be very keen at promoting its stability. Thank you very much.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now we are going to go through your concerns, your questions, your contributions, because like I said, we are all doing the counseling already. We are adding on to your knowledge. So I know you have some more information that you can also share. So Reverend Awuku, over to you, please.
All right. Friends in the Lord, you got it right. What are you telling our dear professor?
God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you. Good job.
Wonderful presentation.
Awesome.
Excellent job.
God bless you.
Excellent job, Mama Mabel.
Excellent job.
Thank you too.
It's full of jollof rice. So good.
Proud of you.
So much.
So I'm waiting for, are there any questions, any concerns, any contributions?
All right. So friends, my professor will say, when you had to ask an African man to talk for 1 minute, you talk for 5 minutes. So test your questions. Test your questions. Sum it up so that we read the questions for to answer them.
Yeah, just a few questions. I think we'll all be fine.
I think some of the questions are on the board already.
Okay.
I think we have worked within the time, right?
Perfectly.
So,
I think some of the questions are on the board already.
Okay, so it means I have to go into the
chat. There's one question from Emmanuel that says that what do we do when one set of the family unit isn't playing their role?
Okay.
When it becomes one.
That is Emmanuel, right?
Emmanuel, yes, please.
Yes. Like I said, as the family, we all work as a system. Everybody should play their role. But when the other is not playing their role, the onus lies on you to encourage them. Sometimes you may want to leave the situation. Oh, leave them. They don't want to be part. But no, that is not the right approach. Try as much as possible to bring them along in every situation. Even if, they don't want to come along or they don't want to contribute or whatever, continue. One day, there was a family that did not like the woman. Their son was going to marry. They married anyway. They still didn't think why the gentleman should marry the lady. But the lady didn't say anything. The man continued assuring the family. And just one day, the other side decided that we want to know your family. You see, he didn't just give up. He continued to encourage them to be part. And today, even though it's not all the members that have come into the net, but majority of them have been able to come along. So I would tell you that you shouldn't give up on them. You should continue to encourage them, because it is when we come together that we become great. Like I said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Please, we're picking a question from Rashid. He says that how can we as MCs identify when such couples can be lost in this shuffle, where the couples will not be able to chart their own marriage identity as a result of past exposure from home or environment?
Okay, so that is why in the counseling process, it involves talking and questioning. You know, sometimes you even need to provide some material for the would-be couples to respond to know what they are thinking about whatever issues that are pertinent to the relationship or to the marriage ahead of them. Then you would know what each of them is thinking. If anybody has gone through premarital counseling, you see that there are inventories that you would use. Sometimes it's just about interview, and then you would be able to pinpoint certain things about whether this person is the type who would want their family to be together, or this is a type who doesn't want to be together with their family, and so on. So it's important that as we go on, you get to know some of the issues that you need to, and then you may ask them, you may use the questionnaires or the inventories, and then you'll be able to identify them. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. There are a few other contributions that came.
Contributions, please give them to me. I'm listening.
Yes, on the question you asked, the triggering factors of divorce.
Okay.
Extensively, we have had a few persons. George says that greed and self-centeredness could lead to divorce. Eugenia says lack of communication. Felix, Tetebo says selfishness. Ajeti again came to say wrong advocacy groups perpetuating bad ideas. Enim says poverty. Again, we have Eugenia saying lack of mutual respect. We have Florrie saying the lack of respect for each other. And then we have interference from extended family, and infidelity also could lead to betrayal of trust, when expectations are not met. We have Vero says that men should also respect the women. She's fighting for women's rights. Okay. We also have Ivana Donko saying that not knowing or understanding who we are before the marriage. Patience says a lack of equality, and again, lack of communication. Mama Joy says that we don't study each other enough before getting married. And Florrie came again to say lack of transparency and lack of trust. George says that increase of false prophets, uniting people where there is no connection.
Yeah.
That says the Lord group. All right. So we have Veronica again coming to say the problem of communication, family influence, and
I think I just saw a question.
Okay.
On whether as Christians we should use the traditional marriage or customary marriage, or how do you call it, ordinance. Okay, so I mean, it depends. In Ghana, for example, our laws recognize traditional marriage. That is the customary marriage that people call engagement. I mean, it's not an engagement, it's marriage. And so as Christians, usually we do the traditional marriage, and because we hear, or Reverend would bail me out on this, that we want God to bless it for us. And I think that could equally be done in the home, but we take it to the church to sign, and then to, I mean, make it legal for the state to recognize it. So whichever way, for me, I think whichever way, wherever you are in the United States, the laws are different. You may marry there because you are there, and their laws may vary from ours. So I don't know, Reverend, could you respond to this person when it comes to Christianity? Would you consider traditional or ordinance marriage?
Yes. Thank you. I'm pretty sure the Presbyterian Church perspective, we believe that the family is contracted between a man and a woman with the agreement or the consent of the family. So the main marriage is what we take from the home. The traditional is the main marriage. However, we try to recognize it at the church to make the church the witness to the marriage. For example, in the Constitution, if a presbyter has done the customary without the ordinance, it is expected that the candidate would do 1 year after assuming office as the elder of the church. So we do recognize the ordinance, making sure that we also involve the church in the union that has been accepted by the family. So we accept the traditional one as a legal one as well.
Okay. So somebody also asked the question whether, how do you manage extended family with your marriage? Is closing the door to the extended marriage the best option? I would say it's not the best option. Family is part of whatever relationship that you are going to. That's why we started discussing family before we came onto the marriage. You cannot take them out entirely. Whatever the issues may be, they need to be resolved. Sometimes they may not be palatable, but you still have to have space for them, because you cannot cut your family out. You may never know when you need them, especially in cases of ill health, in cases of death, you see, where you need the family to come in and you are fought with all of them. Who would be there for you? And as Christians, we shouldn't cut off anybody. As much as possible, we should live at peace with everyone. So even if they are not treating you well, I mean, somebody was asking about in-laws and so on, they have a role to play. We marry the family and not the individual. They have a role to play. So as a person, as a couple, you need to sit down, you need to think, you need to know how you relate to these family members. You don't have to throw them off. Whatever issues they may come along with, you need to find solutions to them. That is why, as much as possible, if you are not able to find solutions, they are not able to find solutions with a counselor in the church, they need to move further to seek other professional help. Okay. All right. So, any more, please? Are we all okay?
Yes, Prof, I see another question by Ethel. I don't know if I've spotted them. Ethel says that Prof spoke about the premarital sex. I want to ask, despite the biblical explanation, don't you think it's better to have the would-be couple explore?
See, ordinarily, humanly, you would think that it's good for you to know who you are marrying. In recent times, there was a counselor on the social media saying that she subscribes to you knowing what your man or your woman is made up of before you marry the person. For me, I don't subscribe to that. You see, if you know your partner functions or not, you would know, not necessarily having premarital sex. You see, so knowing each other, having intimacy with each other and all that, it's not just about sex. Right. Premarital sex, the Bible prohibits that. And as family or Christian counselors, I don't think it's something that we should subscribe to. As much as possible, we should let our would-be couples know the consequences of these. Sometimes they come along with pregnancy, they come along with all kinds of things. Sometimes they are not able to protect themselves and so on. And when they come along with pregnancy, like then you have to marry. They don't love each other, but they have to marry because there's pregnancy. And many of those marriages fail. So it's important that we organize our seminars, whatever. And then when it's time to marry, you marry. You don't delay unnecessarily. I don't like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like that. Those things can actually serve as temptations for you. You are keeping long, you are waiting and waiting, and then why don't I do it once and for all? And then it is the day you do it, that is when you start having your problems. So as a Christian marital counselor, I don't encourage premarital sex before marriage.
Thank you very much. We have all heard this, and we take it in good faith. Yes, Prof, again, we have Tatski's friend wanting to ask the role of the in-laws in marriage. He's asking to what extent do we involve them in the marriage?
Yeah, I think I responded to that question early on, that we marry the family, we don't marry an individual. You may have been influenced by certain cultures or cultures in the United States where people can even marry without their family. So they can meet in the airplane. As soon as they get down, they marry. Nobody will do anything to them because they are two consenting adults and so on. But culturally too, as Ghanaians, we know that marriage is between families and not just individuals. And so you cannot cut off your in-laws. As much as possible, the two of you would have to have what we call, like what we discussed last week, boundaries. Your parents or your family members know where they can step and where they cannot, So sometimes probably your father or your mother would want to come home and then would want to be the one doing the cooking and all that. That should not be accepted. When they come, they are your guests. Support them, you take them in, you do all that you're supposed to do for them, but they are not going to take control of your home. So you should be able to have these boundaries, let them know in a very fair manner, respectable way. So that wouldn't be like once you have gotten married or because you're getting married, you want to cut them off. That is also something that you should be very careful of. If they realize you want to cut them off, that would be a problem. So let them know who you are, where you have gotten to, where they can be, where they cannot be. Most of the time, I think it has to do with the men, letting their parents know, because coming into the home, the woman is there. Sometimes the man's mother wants to do the cooking, has been doing the cooking for the son, and so on. See, but once you let them know from the beginning, then you wouldn't have problems. But if in the beginning, oh, my mother came here and she cooked for us, and then you are excited and you eat, every time it will happen. And then when you marry, it would continue after the wedding. And then you would want it to stop, but it wouldn't stop. So create boundaries. It's very important.
Wow, that's a very wonderful
thank you
position. Yeah, thank you. A follow-up question up here. I'm not too sure if you have answered that, but let me.
The male family is mostly the problem, especially if he has many sisters.
That's right.
Yeah, so you should be accommodating as much as possible, but you should also, the two of you, like I said, you should have your boundaries. And especially the man in this situation should know where their limits are and let them know, you know. Otherwise, they have grown up with this person. They have experienced him. Leaving him and not getting too close to them is difficult. It's difficult. I mean, it's not easy. So it would take some time. But once he is able to educate them, is able to let them know about the issues with you and the marriage you're in and the relationship, they would understand as time goes on. And then you see that, I mean, you all be able to relate on very good terms where nobody would cross, I mean, each other's path or nobody would trespass. Yeah.
All right. Prof. Oti Pwadi, thank you for the brilliant responses. At what stage would we call marriage null and void? A situation where the husband has left the home for at least 3 years, or what? At what stage?
Yeah. So sometimes when I'm asked some of these questions, I want to relate it to the principles of the church, you know, where you are. You know, when we say, I mean, marriage is null and void, somebody who has left home for 3 years, I mean, they're in separation or whatever, or just left home. The person just left home.
Left home, no communication, nothing.
No communication. Then you can, I mean, separate. You can separate. But once there's no communication as to whether the person doesn't want the marriage anymore, or you don't know the person, then you cannot just divorce. I mean, it also depends on the laws, I mean, in the state where you married, or the principle of the Presbyterian Church. But what I know of some churches is that at a certain point where, I mean, you don't hear of each other, you no longer live together, you no longer do things together, you separate. And then you separate for a while whilst you keep finding out what's going on until such time that there's no clue as to what should be done. Then you can call it off. You know, sometimes as Christians, we go on to say, oh, it is only through, how do you call it, infidelity, adultery, that you can divorce and so on. But I don't think, especially when it comes through, I mean, like something like this emotional abuse, where somebody will just leave you without saying anything for 4, 5 years, 6 years. I don't think Christ would even be happy to see you live in this kind of marriage and taking care of your children and calling yourself Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, I mean, waiting for this marriage to continue. So for me, I would leave it to your principles as a church for you to determine that. But once there's nothing really going on when it comes to intimacy, sexual, intimacy, emotional, and all the other stuff that makes up a healthy marriage, then you can go your separate ways. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Upholding my Christian ethics. A question posed to me last week.
Okay.
A man said, I've been in the same country with my wife for 6, 7 years, no intimacy. Am I obliged to walk out of the marriage? What advice should I give to this person?
Have they had intimacy before? I mean, sexual intimacy before?
They are couples, but according to the man, for almost 7 years now, nothing has happened.
So what it means is that the marriage has already been consummated, right?
It's consummated and produced.
It's because of some problems. So as their counselor, I don't know whether you have met them, but you would want to know why no sexual intimacy for 7 years. I don't think it will just come out of the blue, but it would result from something. And once you meet them one-on-one or separately, you would be able to know the reason for that gap. But for 7 years, it's a very long time, and whether they live together in the same house, sleep in the same room, and they are not having it, or what's going on. I mean, all these questions should be asked, but I don't think we should go ahead straight away to tell him to walk away. We need to find out what's really going on, and then we can try to find solutions to that. If there are no solutions, then we will know what to do. Because once there's no sexual intimacy, they cannot continue with the marriage. Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you. I will proceed to the second stage of meeting them to really ascertain the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. One also for us asked a very great question. He says that the adage in a can that says that kwasia ne ware, right? And during the premarital counseling, the man asked you this question. What would you say? Kwasia ne ware?
So, I mean, for anybody to come to the point of premarital counseling, I think this question would rather be for probably a seminar on marriage, premarital, relationships. For somebody, but if somebody has come to the point of, being involved in premarital counseling and asking such a question, then I don't think the person is ready. So, I'm not sure, but I think nobody would come to counseling and ask this question. Otherwise, the person has a problem. Or the relationship is going through problems. And they have come in there, and then he's now telling you that this marriage, I cannot go ahead with it because kwasia ne ware, And then as a counselor there, you are now going to ask why he's making such a comment, and then the person would advance their reasons, and then you would be able to tell them some of the, right reasons that you should marry, and it's not a kwasia who marries, and so on. So when people come up with these things, it's important that we take our time for them. They may be coming from certain quarters that we may not even be aware of, and getting to know their reasons would help us, support them in ways we can. Yeah.
May I add? For such a question, even to me, it seems like an abuse to God, because it is God who initiated marriage. For a person to talk about it, it's an insult to the Creator.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I asked the question, and it is a man who came to me that this is what he has been hearing from the family, kwasia ne ware. So it is a term you want to understand before going into the marriage, but not that he himself is having the problem. No. Yeah, he wanted to know why. Thank you.
So as a Christian counselor, I guess you have learned a lot, even in the past 2 weeks, that marriage is an important institution in the eyes of God. God created marriage. So once this person is a Christian and adheres to the principles of Christianity, then marriage is not for fools.
Yeah.
It's for those who are wise, because they are going according to the covenant that God made with man. Please, are you following? So once you are able to take him through the fact that a man would live and cleave with a wife and so on, these are principles that God gave to man, and they will become one flesh.
Yeah.
So it's not about somebody who is stupid. So this abuse is mine. These are some, sayings that were used traditionally, but they are not things that we should carry into a Christian life at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak here, Reverend Awuku?
Yes, please. Yes.
Doctor, I'm happy you ended on traditional sayings, and that has been one of my lessons in counseling.
Okay.
That we enter into marriage with some traditional sayings, and they go with us. So what I've been doing is that once you have traditional sayings before you get into marriage, note also that there are also biblical sayings in marriage.
Yes.
And we, as Christians, we must stick to the biblical sayings for marriage.
Yeah.
What God has put together, let no man put asunder.
Yes.
The woman has been created by God. We've been created in the same image of God.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. So I ask them to go home, then look at the traditional sayings, they come, they bring the sayings, then I ask them about it. Then I ask them at another time to go and find biblical sayings, they come and then we discuss.
Great.
And then they will defray their minds out all those things that they take into marriage.
All right.
But I have another concern.
Okay.
These days, looks like even Christians or pastors are talking of dating. What do you say to that? Dating.
So dating is not bad, you know. Maybe
let me put it in the way I see that. Cohabiting. Let me say cohabiting.
Cohabit.
Right.
Oh, really? Even pastors?
Yes. Some people do. But they say they have lived with. They want to live with the person at a particular time that they see themselves, and then they go and marry. And you see it all around. And even apart from pastors, on social media, people are propagating those kind of things.
So, I mean, in the worldly sense of it, people may think it's one thing that would let you know whoever, but I don't think living under the same roof with a person is what would make you know your partner. I mean, who you want to marry. There are so many things that you can go through with your counselor and then learn as to what to know about your partner, their values, their behaviors, and so on. You don't necessarily have to live under the same roof and sleep together. Somebody say, oh, we don't sleep together and so on. That is absurd because you're two people, male, female, who get attracted to each other sexually. So for me, I don't subscribe to that. To cohabitation. Some people would, but for me, I don't. So it's important that in your counseling sessions, you let your couples know that Christ doesn't subscribe to that. That you go live with your would-be husband or wife, and then get to know each other before you marry. It is never written anywhere in the scriptures. So when you marry, you will see whatever you want to see. God knows. And that is why we said, let the Lord lead. Let the Lord lead. It's not just about the things we are talking about, but ultimately, prayer is key. Prayer is key because Jesus knows about all these things we are saying. And then when we take it to them or when we take it to him, he would be able to lead us into the marriage we are looking for. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like going back to school.
Yes.
Yeah, as a counselor, and can we always say that God would do to part people whereby they are going through a lot of challenges or red flags, or even when they are married and then challenges upon challenges and this kind of destroying our Christian life? Can we keep saying God would do?
No, we can't always say that, and I don't think I have said that this evening. All I'm saying is that we need to go through all the things we have said, but also know that as Christian counselors, we cannot leave the Lord out. So as you help them surmount their challenges, whether it's communication, conflict, or whatever, you also teach them not to forget God in this process. That is what I want us to do. Otherwise, we would only be concerned with these principles and we leave God out. But remember, we said that God is the creator of marriage. He knows why he created it. And it's a covenant between man and God. So if we are doing anything and we don't bring him into it, especially in this community, then what are we doing? So as we helping the couple go through, understand the family system, understand marriage and all that, we need to let them understand from the Christ point of view too. So it's not like we are leaving all our challenges to God. No, even God doesn't want that. He wants us to work through them. When Christ came to earth, he went through his challenges, but he prayed as well. When he needed to feed people, he fed them. When he needed to help people, he helped them. But he also sometimes sought the Lord in prayer. So that is what we have to do. So going through all these, remember to tell them that as we go through these, remember to seek the Lord in prayer too. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Please, I see this as
Papa, can I ask a question?
Okay, Papa, I'm coming. Let me read the Evangelist Pittman's comment here. Then we come, Papa Samuel. Yeah, there's a comment here which was posted over 5 minutes ago. Evangelist Pittman says, I think that his seemed to be a suggestion. He says that in his opinion, staying apart for a long time would, quench the fire of love.
Of course.
And, he believes that spending quality time together rekindle the love.
Yes, so. Very true. Very true. Even when you are together and one goes on a trek or something, you see how you feel. So staying apart for a very long time actually kills that passion between the two of you. So it's important that as much as possible, whatever it would take for you to be together, try. Me, I was in the States with my husband. I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to come to Ghana. So he had to come to Ghana. And we are all making our life in Ghana. So, I mean, you can make the decision. But one staying there and the other staying over, oh, no. It would destroy so many things. You think that you are getting remittances and so on, but that is not what marriage is about, So somebody asked, he said, somebody asked a question. He said, a couple is going to marry because they need children. Should we diffuse the idea or just leave them? Ooh. Oh. They want to marry just because they want to have children. Having children, like I said, is part of the reasons. But people marrying for the sole reason of going to have children, that is not the best. Marrying to be with each other for companionship, for spending time together, knowing each other, and then if children come along the way, hooray, we thank God. But not, I have met you. I want to marry you because I want to have children with you. That is a no-no. That is a no-no. So when you go into the marriage and the children don't come, what would you do? It means the marriage will break up.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So that is a no-no from the beginning. It's a no-no.
All right. Thank you. Wonderful.
So do marriage counselors have problems in their marriages? Yes. Marriage counselors are also human beings. Just like psychologists, we all have problems.
Big time.
They have all these techniques. They have all these strategies. But because they are human, sometimes the issues get to them. They may apply some, but it would not work. So they also need to seek counseling. So a doctor would see another doctor to help them heal. A psychologist would see another psychologist to help them go through their problems. So I have my psychologist. So as a counselor, you should also have your counselor that you talk to.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Also for Samuel would want to ask a question.
Papa, my question is, to what point can a premarital counselor terminate counseling? I don't know if my question is clear.
Okay, so it depends on the guidelines of the church, you see. So every church has their own guidelines as to the various stages you go through with the would-be couple. So, I mean, whatever those stages are, and then after going through medical, whatever, and then you are satisfied with everything they have scored, their inventories they have responded to, and so on, then you can terminate at a point of when they are going to get married. You don't finish then. You can continue, or you would continue after the marriage, depending on, I mean, what transpired during the process and what you want to see happening in the marriage. So for me, you will not just go off, but you can end at a point when they're going to get married. I mean, when you are satisfied with everything, it may not be 100%, I should tell you this. They may not score everything as you expect, but some of them, there's room for improvement. So you keep tracking, yeah.
But there is a hand up.
Papa, please, I put on a question about 15 minutes ago.
Oh, you did?
It's almost 12 minutes.
All right, so we'll take 2 more and then we'll go.
Oh.
It's been amazing. 12 minutes more, 12 minutes more. Okay, I think I found it. That's 23, right? Sure. The question says, should one continue to stay in an abusive marriage which involves stress?
Death threats.
Sure, death threats.
Yes.
It's a no-no.
Yeah.
It's a no-no. With abuse, you cannot continue to stay in it because you don't know when you will die. So once there is abuse, when it comes to especially physical abuse, the person hates you all the time, you have to find a safety net. Talk to somebody in terms of how you get out of that marriage. I don't stay on and say it would work. God will do it. No. God is not interested in you being beaten or being hit with a knife or a gun. So as much as possible, if you are going through any form of abuse, as much as possible, you need to seek safety. You need to talk to your counselor, you need to talk to your pastor as to how. Sometimes they are told, oh, and all that, and people die. So like I was saying, you go through all the things you had to go through and encourage them that you are praying for them, that they should talk to somebody, they should confide in you, they should get the lines of the police, they should get the lines of the social workers or social welfare. Do something to be able to get out, not to share that information with anyone, and then assure them of your support. And then they leave. Otherwise, when they leave, they continue to live in that relationship and die, that will not be the best, or that is not the best. It happens all over the world, but I don't ask couples or partners or spouses to do that. When it's abuse, we leave, because nothing is going to change that person except Christ. And that one, it wouldn't take you to do that. It wouldn't take you, the victim, to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Then I may add a follow-up question.
Yeah.
In situations where you have non-physical abuse, which happens to be emotional.
Yeah.
Means the person, kills the person mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that also place?
Yeah, same. Because every time you are crying inside, you feel very low about yourself, you walk on eggshells, you are lost as a person because of emotional abuse. You cannot continue to do that. You will die. So, I mean, that's why I said even verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, any kind of abuse, you don't have to stay on. You have to leave. I know leaving is a problem for many people in abusive relationships, but leaving is a process too. You can do it little by little, speaking to people who matter and not people who will tell you to stay and that divorce is abhorred by God. No. Or somebody who will go and tell your husband, oh, your wife came to report you to me. No. You need to be very careful. As counselors, you need to be very careful in terms of confidentiality. When somebody comes to you with such an issue, be there for that person. Don't judge. Let the person know that they can rely on you, and then help them to seek safety than telling them to stay on. Yeah.
Yes, this brings to mind an experience that I had. If someone comes to tell you something that you feel the police must know, where does your pastoral role fall in terms of involving the police?
Yeah. In terms of issues about death, like suicide and all that, things that you realize that it's going to harm everybody, it's going to harm the person, that one, it goes beyond confidentiality. You need to report that. So if a client comes to you and reports that because of this and this and that, I'm going to kill somebody, or I'm going to die, I'm going to take poison, don't think that, oh, he has told me something, I don't have to tell anybody. That one, you need to divulge the information to the police or to the people who matter, and then something could be done about it. Yeah.
Friends, I must tell you, it's almost 12 in Ghana, and we can continue to hold our dear learned professor. You can tell from her research, from her presentation, that she is more than us getting a facilitator even in the US, because the whole presentation was contextualized. It was really in our context, bringing in our vibes and letting us understand the terrain to which she was making the presentation. If I were to be in the chair to make my closing remark, I would have said that this is par excellence presentation. And
Thank you very
we're
much.
very, very grateful to have you for such. My children know me for, according to research, according to statistics, according to this data. And so when he started, I was just looking around whether they were around. They could have said, yes, that's Papa. That's Papa.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
And
You're welcome.
God bless you. We are blessed. We are blessed.
All right. Thank you too.
Friends, what are we telling our professor?
God richly
God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
So much.
Excellent.
Bless you too.
Good job.
You were so far.
You've also been an excellent audience.
Yes.
Bless you too.
Go.
Wow.
All right. So
Yes.
we hope to see you all